Joining me is going to be Gareth Hay, who is an education committee member for the Command and Control Alliance. I have heard a little bit about them. I came to one of their meetings at an InfoComm, but thought it would be cool to have you on here to tell us a little bit more about it. Welcome, Gareth.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you? I'd love if you could talk a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what the Command and Control Alliance does.
Great. So hi, I'm Gareth. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not local, but I joined Barco about 5 years ago after a career in live events and IT and telecoms, and focusing on sort of audio visual for controllers. And as the C2A sort of built up, I joined as a member of the education committee, building some of the pieces that we're going to be presenting to both members and non-members alike as we move forward. And the C2A was designed to help a sort of underserved area of the market in a how do we standardize, how do we improve on what is given out to the space.
Awesome. And in your opinion, what makes command and control environments so fundamentally different from a typical AV environment?
So if I joined this meeting, say a minute late, it would have been slightly embarrassing. But we would have achieved what we needed to achieve.
Yeah.
We still had this conversation. If you're dispatching an ambulance, if you are rerouting power, if you are doing any of these spaces where response times matter, that minute could have very different consequences. And that's really the main difference. It's that these spaces matter. These spaces tend to have a mission, not just a job. And it's around, it's 24/7, it's 365. There are people looking and using these systems for a full 12 hours. So, making sure that the ergonomics and things like that are great, really important to those people who sat in that chair doing these important spaces.
Where do you think reliability and resilience requirements change how these systems need to be designed?
So, again, connectivity, for example, if I'd needed to, I could have joined this meeting on my phone, but when you're trying to connect to, a power station across the other side of the state, it's making sure that all those hops in between you can get through. Do you have redundancy in switching? Do you have redundancy in power? Can an operator, if they spill coffee all over their keyboard and mouse, stand up and move across the room and sit down and carry on working? All of these layers, all of this space, but things like we all are slightly different heights. Can each operator have a nice OSHA approved, nice central look at the screen? Do they have the right type of chair? For example, particularly in law enforcement, do they have a chair where they can sit wearing a gun belt? All of these things are, the various layers you need to sort of think about when you're in these types of spaces.
What are some common mistakes that you think organizations make when they're designing mission critical spaces?
So I call this the day 20 problem and then the day 572 problem. So the day 20 problem is what happens if you've received a spec from a consultant or an end user, and if you're overly tight to that spec, you've made it perfectly fit that spec, but as that customer uses the system, gets to know it a bit better, and suddenly goes, what would be really helpful? We'd like to get video into Sarah's office over there. And if you've overly spec'd it too tight, and you can't enable these sort of second day ideas and these 20-day ideas, the customer, while you probably ticked off the spec requirements, isn't going to have a great experience, isn't going to necessarily do what they want to be able to do. And that's the bit they're going to remember, not necessarily that you completely ticked off all the requirements that are on the paper. And the day 520 problem is, Everyone can make day one work. We've all got then the system in the back of our head. We know where the cable routes go to get to Sarah's office. But day 500 and something, you've forgotten all of that. You've moved on. You've done 20 projects. They've done 20 projects internally. What happens if the sprinkler goes off and suddenly all of that equipment is dead? How do you get it back up and running as quickly as possible? So things like the as-built and systems that are designed to be sort of easy to support and easy to build up again or change are really important.
Absolutely. How do you think that these environments are evolving as systems are pretty much constantly becoming more networked and software driven?
So some of the research that's come out in this space is one of the key aspects of whether a control room is efficient or not efficient is how well people can collaborate. And that's within their team, within the organization, across organizations, and whether that's, being able to access teams, whether that's being able to share content, the ability to work with people who are necessarily outside that room is really key in these spaces. And more things are going to be, we're talking on a SaaS platform right now. So having that connectivity is really important to make sure that they can adopt these new practices, adopt these new tools, because most of them aren't going to be something you install in the physical office.
What do you think redundancy looks like in a properly designed command and control environment?
No single point of failure. And that includes the operator in that chair. So making sure that any operator can take over a part of that role, maybe not all of it, and then that building. So I was having a conversation with a consultant recently, and he pointed out to me that what happens if you can't flush the toilets? Suddenly, people can't do a 12-hour shift at that space. So how do you manage that? How do you make sure that there's still an option to be able to keep doing whatever you need to do? Whether that's a second control room in a different building, whether that's some remote connectivity, what happens when you can't flush the toilets?
Yeah. Nothing good.
Yeah, but it's one of those, it really brings it home, doesn't it? Like, it doesn't matter how well that one office is beautifully set up. If you need to do it remotely or you need to bring up the second control room, how easily is that?
How easily can you do it? Yeah. And kind of leaning now towards cybersecurity, I mean, obviously it plays a big role, but I would like you to kind of talk about the role that cybersecurity plays in command and control environments.
So as more stuff is online, the traditional idea of air gapping things and hiding them all behind their own little network that's not connected to anything else. And we still see designs like that, like all day, every day. But eventually someone's going to plug in a cable. Someone is going to make sure that suddenly there's going to be the killer feature that must require it to have internet access, and someone's going to plug in that cable. So designing it to be manageable, to run updates. One of the biggest things is, these spaces are, like I said earlier, 24/7, 365. So how do you run an update? How do you manage actually installing something new while keeping that space running? Can you do a rolling update? Do you have enough devices that you can update one while another one carries on doing the roll? Can Sarah sit at a different desk? Is there enough desks that she can sit at a different desk while you update her desk? These types of things, because one of the biggest parts of cybersecurity is keeping up to date with updates. It's the biggest factor that you can probably achieve as an organization by yourself without leaning into becoming a manufacturer yourselves.
Fair enough. And you kind of mentioned like the importance of being flexible within a command and control environment. How easily can you switch to being remote when something happens? So how do you think organizations are balancing flexibility with the need for reliability? Because I feel like that's very hard.
It is. And there's also security, again, as one of those things that comes back into this. Do you necessarily want someone to be able to look through Bob's window at home and see whatever Bob's working on? Yeah, these things happen, unfortunately, and this is a world, and certainly once you get into some of the three-letter acronym companies, it's a space they need to take account. So one of the interesting bits that came out in some research that the organization I particularly work for did was there's still a challenge on, do you necessarily want people to work from home in these spaces? Now that can be balanced with, maybe some of the admin tasks. You can definitely make sure that those aren't required. But then how do you balance that with the ability to do things like flexibility of workload? So we're seeing a lot of, like in oil and gas, where particularly they're centralizing a lot of their command and control into larger cities. So there's a project up in Alaska where, rather than having multiple control rooms out in small areas where they fly in, drop someone off, pick them up in 6 weeks, and then they get to have 6 weeks off, bringing all that connectivity and bringing all of those devices that back into the nearest city. So, they can go to the cinema, they can go shopping, they, can feed the dog at night. All of these things that seem simple, but if you've had to go do 6 on, 6 off all the time, it's a huge change in ability. But again, this is all connectivity, this is all cyber, this is all making sure that you can do this in a way that allows you to pass audits. This is a lot of these spaces are under certifications or under quite stringent rules.
If for someone who is designing a control room today, what do you think that they should prioritize to ensure long-term reliability?
So one of the biggest factors, I think, is probably the network. Making sure, like, planning that, even if the customer turns around to you and says, this is going to be an air-gapped system, we want you to design it around that. Having that concept of, at some point, someone's going to bring out that killer feature that suddenly makes them plug in that cable. Whether it maybe not Chat GPT, but it might be, the ability to pull cellular from satellite, all of these sorts of things that just technology is moving so quick. I can't tell you what the killer feature for any individual vertical might be, but I can tell you it's going to change, and it's probably not going to be something that you can buy a box, walk the box into their office and plug it in somewhere. It's going to be online somewhere. So designing around connectivity, designing around making sure that the idea of zero trust networking and things like that, making sure that everything's segmented how it can, as far as it can be, will allow people to trust the idea of connectivity, because connectivity is only going to grow. And you want to make sure that as an organization you built something that can cope, because when someone plugs in that cable, it's you they're going to call that necessarily says, why didn't this work?
Yeah. Last question I have for you is, what do you think integrators should understand before taking on their first command and control project?
So there's a concept, it's kind of big in cybersecurity at the moment, called anti-fragile. Now, anti-fragile is this idea that as you work something, it gets better. So I prefer the term work hardening. So as you hit a piece of metal, eventually that metal gets harder. And the idea is build systems that you don't need to do something twice. So, if you make a fix for something, that's it. That fix you can deploy across all your customers and all their systems. So you fix it once, it's fixed everywhere. And that concept of just building to make sure that you're not chasing the same problem in multiple locations, I think is one of probably the key factors in this space.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. The last question that I actually have for you is, where can people find more on C2A?
So C2A will be at Infocom, so please come and physically see us there. Otherwise, please go on our website, and we will be announcing a talk that we're going to be doing in DC in May, middle of May. But otherwise, we will be at Infocom, so please come see us there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gareth.
No worries. Take care. Bye.
Bye.